right, good morning. Good to see everybody out this morning. Happy Mother's Day to the mothers out there. Let's start off Sunday School Hour by standing. We'll take our hymnals and turn to hymn 406. Hymn 406 this morning, standing as we're saying, God leads us along. In shady green pastures, so rich and so sweet, God leads us, dear children, along. Where the water's cool flow bathes the weary one's feet, God leads us, dear children, along. Some through the water, some through the flood, some through the fire, but all through the blood. Some through great sorrow, but God gives a song in the night season and all the day long. Sometimes on the mount where the sun shines so bright, God leads us, dear children, along. Sometimes in the valley in darkness of night, God leads us, dear children, along. Some through the water, some through the flood, some through the fire, but all through the blood. Some through great sorrow, but God gives a song in the night season and all the day long. Though sorrows befall us and Satan oppose, God leads us, dear children, along. Through grace we can conquer, defeat all our foes. God leads us, dear children, along. Some through the water, some through the flood, the fire, but all through the blood. Some through great sorrow, but God gives a song in the night season and all the day long. Away from the mire and away from the clay, God leads us, dear children, along. Away up in glory, eternity's day, God leads us, dear children, along. Some through the water, some through the flood, some through the fire, but all through the blood. Some through great sorrow, but God gives a song in the night season and all the day long. Good saying this morning. Brother Sam, will you lead us in prayer for the Sunday School offering?
Heavenly Father, thank you for this beautiful morning that you've given us, and thank you for the freedom that we still have to come and assemble together to hear your word preached, Lord, and to pray and to sing. And thank you for this beautiful Mother's Day that you've given us. Lord, I pray that this offering that we're about to take, I pray that we would give liberally and out of a joyful heart, and that it would all be done for your honor and glory. Praise Jesus.
Amen. You may be seated. All right, I promised a slideshow today over the last couple lessons, so Michael, I'm going to turn this on and take that back there so I can narrate as I go. I'll get this set up and we'll get started. And we'll need the lights then. Oh, Mac. Who likes Macs? Yeah, that's true. Ancient running Genesis, Hammurabi, Egypt, Phoenicia. Did we not get the other one? All right. Maybe I don't have it downloaded already. Well, shouldn't take but a minute. This might take a second. And now you get to see where I get it from. PowerPoints. Ah, there it is. Or it could take a few hours. Oh, there it goes. Everybody see that all right? No? Good. We do need some blinds, apparently. Next project. All right, now let's try that. 13 through 23. There we go. All right, we are at Samaria. All right, you can load anytime now. All right, part 16, Samaria and Jezreel. We had gone over this a little bit ago. Let me get my notes out so I know what I'm talking about as we go through, at least a little bit, or I can pretend like it. We talk about Samaria. We went through Samaria decently quickly as we went through, but I think it's important that we see some of this stuff after we did Phoenicia. So Samaria was the capital of the northern kingdom of Israel, and later we talked about this. It became a district in Israel. That's what we see in the New Testament times. So when we talk about this, we talked about Ahab, and we kind of went through the story of Ahab and Jezebel a little bit, and then went through some of the other kings until Assyria had come in and conquered the northern kingdom of Israel. So this will be some of the slides that have to do with those two sections there. So there's Samaria and Jezreel. I don't know if you can see that super clear. Probably better in the map in your back of your Bible. That's right. Northern kingdom was formed when Jeroboam led the 10 tribes in rebellion against Solomon's son. Anybody remember who Solomon's son was? Rehoboam. Very good. I always find that interesting. Don't get that mixed up when you do your King's test, though, because you get marked off for that. And don't ask me how I know that. Jeroboam established the false worship at Bethel and Dan. You can see the golden calf there. Some of these are Sunday school paintings more than anything else. The northern kingdom of Israel. This is a really good picture of what it would have covered. Of course, then as they disobeyed God, and as other nations kind of picked them to pieces, Ammon, Moab, you see the Phoenicia, you see Tyre there, Syria, and eventually Assyria are going to come down and conquer all of that land eventually, but they take big chunks of it at a time. There's an artist reconstruction of Dan, the temple at Dan there. Anybody notice something about that or what it looks like? Would that be a copy of? Yeah, the design is laid out very similar to what Solomon's temple would have been, with an outer court, then an inner court, and the temple itself, which in Solomon's temple had the holy place and then the Holy of Holies. There it is, what it looks like today. So you can see why they were able to render it in a drawing. You can kind of see how it was laid out. There's a golden calf. That one's Apis from the Egyptian gods. And there's one patterned after Baal. Jeroboam built his capital in Tirzah near Shechem. You can see those cities on the map. Let you look at it for a second. You can see where Samaria is then to the west of where Tirzah is. And oftentimes, as we talked about some of these ancient kingdoms, sometimes the king would set up his own capital or build his own city, and the capitals bounced around. So Samaria was a capital. Jeroboam built a capital. Other people moved it back and forth. And then Jeroboam died, and we had Nadab, Baasha, Elah, Zimri, and Omri in quick succession afterwards. Omri made Samaria the capital of the northern kingdom. He bought the hill of Samaria, Samaria of Shemer for 2 talents of silver, 1 Kings 16:24, and built the capital on the hill. He named the capital for the hill itself, if you ever wondered where the name came from. And that's the hill of Samaria today, where the city once stood. As you can see, it would have been a good place to build a city. Very defensible. And a map of Israel with Samaria and Tirzah marked on there. I like that one. It's topographical. Omri's son, Ahab, built a house of ivory at Samaria, 1 Kings 22. It doesn't mean the house was entirely built of ivory, but it was heavily ornamented with ivory. There's an artist's recreation of ancient Samaria during the days of Ahab. In ancient times, the city itself would have been walled, and then there would have been a inner court, or the palace, oftentimes would have built on a hill, and that would have been walled as a last-ditch area of defense if they needed it. Ahab also built a summer palace in Jezreel. This is the north of Samaria, along the foothills of Mount Gilboa. The Valley of Jezreel has another name. It's Megiddo, where the Battle of Armageddon will occur. You can see the valley there. You see the mountain at the other end of it. And that is the valley of the plain of Megiddo, the valley of Megiddo of Jezreel. There gives you a good idea of what you're looking across from Mount Gilboa all the way across. I don't know about you guys, but when I see this kind of stuff, it makes me want to go visit it in person often. The plain was a major highway through Israel from north to Egypt. It was through here many armies traveled and many battles have been fought. Even Alexander the Great traveled through this area. When he came to conquer, the Romans did the same thing, and it has continued to be a thoroughfare for armies. Jezebel was the daughter of Ethbaal, king of Tyre and Sidon. Ahab, 1 Kings 16:31, you can read it there for yourself. That would be a stone carving or a picture of Baal there next to it. And the Phoenician kingdom, which we talked about that before we talked about the northern kingdom of Israel. Josephus says that Ethbaal came to the throne by murdering his predecessor. Some of this stuff sorry Stephanie, I'm going to flip through a little quicker. Through the idols, I don't think they're necessarily super important unless you're interested in archaeology itself. This is the one, we talked about this when we talked about Baal worship. 20,000 urns containing the remains of sacrificed children to Baal. That's the cemetery there in Carthage. Of course, then Israel got involved in Baal worship and Molech. This is more about the Phoenician Empire. You can see there where they would have gone to. There's Tyre. You can see the northern and southern ports, and then the causeway that goes out. Pretty interesting. That's carved ivory, if you can read that. We definitely could use a curtain or two. More ivory carvings. If Annie was here, I'd say, look. Now I'm doing it just to a nice Stephanie. All right, does anybody know what that is called, the type of artwork? We talked about it. Ah, I knew Dan would get it. There's a bas relief. Or John? Sorry. Okay. Well, next time he gets something right, I'll give you credit. So you'll be waiting a while. Can anybody see that there is gold inlay in that? Can you see that from there? Okay, it's not super clear on the screen, but on the computer screen you can see it. But there is actually still in that one some parts of it that have some gold inlay. I actually need to get a laser pointer. That would be handy dandy when we do these. Yeah, but I'm a little bit worried about what it might be connected to. There's a couch. Part of a couch. Well, they would have had cushions on it. But imagine, I know what I paid for our new couches that we just got. Imagine what something that was carved out of ivory would cost you. Probably get arrested because they killed rhinos for it. But there's purple from Tyre. We talked about that. Murex shells. We talked about this a little bit. Now you can get to see it. The dye was called purple of the sea in the Maccabees because it was made by a secret, closely guarded formula from the shell of a murex. It would take thousands and thousands of shells just to get a small amount of purple from that. They would harvest these. There's an ancient Tyre coin depicting a murex shell. Some of these are more clear than others. Another coin from Tyre about 250 BC, depicting a priest worshiping before Hercules with a murex shell below. Why would the priest in 250 BC be worshiping Hercules? Doesn't that sound a little odd? It doesn't. Why not? What would have happened by 250 BC? The Greeks wouldn't have been in power anymore, but the Greek influence would have been. Alexander would have conquered the known world before this, and then the Romans would begin to be in power by 250 BC. But the Greek influence of the world, the Romans kept. So the worship of Hercules and the Greek gods would have spread all across Asia and the Mediterranean. Coin of Tyre, 350 BC, a Tirum and a dragon and a murex shell are all on those. That one's not too bad. I find the coins interesting. I don't know that we've gotten too much better in printing our coins. Can you imagine a penny that old? I wonder if you'd be able to see all the stuff. There's the dyeing pits for the purple. Not dying as in death. But, yeah. Well, the murex, the shells, yeah, the animals in there, they go there to die. But there's the 2,000-year-old cloth. It's not real clear even on the computer, but that is the purple from the Dead Sea caves that they found, that piece of cloth. We talked about that one. I saw other pictures of it. It's actually still pretty. It's pretty. It's very purple. Luke 19:16, there was a certain rich man which was clothed in purple. He would have had to have been very wealthy to afford purple. Of course, Lydia is a seller of purple in the city of Thyatira, Acts 16:14. What else do we know about Lydia in Thyatira? What happened at her house? What's that? She was a convert, yeah. Where was the church located at? At her house. Did anybody ever wonder why the church was met at Lydia's house? It was big. She was wealthy. She was a seller of purple. Purple was very expensive cloth. It was a dye that she would have been a very wealthy lady. She would have had a large house, enough to hold a congregation of that church at Thyatira. I don't know if you ever thought about that before, but when I was going through this, I thought about that. That is why the church met there. They had plenty of room. Tyre traded with Egypt, Arabia, and Persia. You see the map of the Mediterranean there. Tubal, Meshech, Togarmah, Javan, and Tarshish. Jonah wanted to sail where? To Tarshish, which would have been Spain. He's where he was headed. That was a long way to go to avoid doing what God told him to do. Hopefully Tim's listening in, Jolynn, but he asked about Noah and how long before destruction of Nineveh that Noah would have preached. It would have been about 135 years before the destruction. Noah. Yeah, I did say Noah, didn't I? Jonah, sorry. Jonah. Noah would have been a lot longer before that. Here's a depiction of Ethbaal's palace in Tyre. Jezebel's brother, Baal Esser, would have been also a king in that palace. You can see the wealth that she would have been surrounded by. I think we saw that picture. Oh, good. We get Sunday school pictures. We should sing the song. King Ahab. Julia's not here to lead it? All right. Well, we won't do that. I think I'm going to push through some of that. It was Jezreel that prophet Elijah ran after the great contest with Baal. Jezebel sent word that she was going to kill him the next day. Some of these are good. So where did God send the fire down from heaven? Oh, I was hoping Dan would get that so John could get credit. You still have to wait. Mount Carmel. Then he ran through to Jezreel, the valley of Jezreel. Giving Stephanie a chance to read. Of course, these are part of Old Testament. You could read about them in the scriptures. 1 Kings 22. There's Ramoth Gilead. Talked about that city there. I like that. Is there not a prophet of the Lord besides that we might inquire of him? And the king of Israel said unto Jehoshaphat, there is yet one man, Micaiah the son of Imlah, but I hate him, for he doth prophesy good. He doth not prophesy good concerning me, but evil. I guess that's understandable. You usually don't like people that talk bad about you. Although that was the word of the Lord. And the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, sat each on his throne, having put on their robes, that's good to know, and in a void place in the entrance at the gate of Samaria. First Kings 22. Go ahead there and read that if you want. We're going to move on. Ahab was killed in the battle. Blood was licked up by the dogs when his chariot was washed out. That's a good picture. I like that one. City was taken from Hazael, king of Syria, but Jehoram was wounded in the battle and returned to Jezreel to recover. 2 Kings 8. You can see the depiction of the battle there on a bas relief from the Assyrian Empire. Okay, we read about this. Jehu could be seen from a long distance from the tower of the palace, and the two riders were sent out to meet him. Jezebel saw him coming. Slightly bumpy panorama. We'll skip that. The remnants of the Jezreel watchtower looking towards Mount Moriah in the Jezreel Valley. 2 Kings chapter number 9. Oh, look, Jezebel. I don't know who wrote the captions on these, but it says, Jehu then rode to the city gate, and Jezebel called to him from the palace. She had dolled herself up for the occasion. There's another depiction. Of course, these are all artist renderings of these things. Sorry, Stephanie. Jehu was also forced to submit to the king of Assyria. See a bas relief of that? Whoa. This is a little bit of the same things. Jehoshaphat. Anybody know what that's showing there? Yep. Would be Solomon's temple there. Or at least a depiction of it. Model of it. I believe that is a model that is located in the museum at Jerusalem of what the temple would have looked like. You can see why people would have come from a long distance to see Solomon's temple. Sorry. Aha. Talked about these a little bit, but that's an Assyrian bas relief again. All right, here we'll get into the Assyrian itself. You can see there's a lot that they found from the Assyrian Empire, statues and carvings and things, archaeological digs that they found. So we'll flip through these. First mention of Assyria is in 2 Kings, the reign of Tiglath-Pileser. There is a bas relief of Tiglath-Pileser. Does anybody notice something interesting about his right arm? Michael got it. What's it look like that's on there? A wristwatch. I'm not sure if he got that from Sweden or not, but a miniature sundial? I don't know. Could just been a cufflink. Yeah, I don't think so.
Like a bracer.
Yeah, probably more like a bracer. It really does look like a wristwatch, though. 2 Kings 15:19, and Pul, the king of Assyria, came against the land, and Menahem gave Pul 1,000 talents of silver, that his hand might be with him to confirm the kingdom in his hand. He bribed him to leave him alone. Okay, so Ephraim gets taken, Naphtali, most of Galilee ends up in the hands of the Assyrians. There is a bas relief of Shalmaneser. He was the one who besieged the city of Samaria, the capital of the northern kingdom. He dies during the siege. It's a 3-year siege. And after that, then the city is finally taken by Sargon II in 721 BC. One of the things that we didn't talk about a whole lot, but that the Assyrians were known for, in order to keep control of the lands that they conquered, they would move the people around the empire. So they would play a little bit of chess. Anybody ever use those little flat games that they give you at some of those restaurants where you have to slide the little pieces around and try to get the picture. I kind of picture that. They would take chunks of the empire and move whole populations to different parts in order to keep control of them. And that's what happened to the people of Israel. They were taken captive, and others were settled into the land there at the city of Samaria in the central part of Israel. And that's why you have then that mixed crowd in the New Testament. They carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Hala. I guess that's why they Halad. And in Habor by the river of Gozan in the city of the Medes. For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God. Of course, God had punished them. And then people from Babylon and other places would have been moved into that area. That looks like it's computer generated. Here's some Roman ruins there. I find it interesting that they are better Roman roads than what you find in the city of Lancaster. Some of this stuff is Roman built. We'll talk about some of these things when we get to the Roman Empire. This is the record of Tiglath-Pileser. Talks about taking the cities of Omri, king of Israel. There's Shalmaneser, there's Black Obelisk. That's where we get the close-up of Jehu offering the tribute of the Assyrian king. The obelisks were used as record keeping. It's like a library in stone. Of course, the winner of the battle gets to write the history. There's a close-up of it. Archaeological expeditions in Samaria in early 1900s located Omri's palace. It's hard to get a picture of the size of that from some of these pictures, but they weren't small houses. They were big. Here's one. The inner wall enclosed an area of 4 acres. I don't know if you can tell from that picture, but those trees look like olive trees to me. I'm going to flip through some of these quickly because we're almost out of time. Naboth's Vineyard, found in 2012, not that long ago. Possibly, anyway. That is a very bad. Actually, it doesn't look bad up there. It's very pixelated on mine. Great Press in Jordan Valley. Of course, we've seen the idolatry of Samaria. let you read that one. Oh, wow. Time is flying. Read it. It says, in Samaria, the ground is literally covered with ivory splinters. Bible historian. Many of them would have been from Ahab's palace. Ivory, ivory, more ivory. Can you see the gold inlay on that one? Still can't? It's probably because it's too much light coming in. Did we talk about Jezebel's ring? There it is. Signet ring containing the name of Jezebel herself. I thought that was interesting. Had Jezebel's royal seal on it. Very idolatrous woman. These are some same ones, but a little bit better view. Could almost, I like this one. It shows what the Jews of that day would have worn in the northern kingdom. Beards, long robes, peaked caps, and pointed shoes. Interesting. Either that or they're a very poor artist, which I doubt that. This talks about King Menahem and a capture of Galilee and Naphtali by Tiglath-Pileser and his watch. We read this before. The first year of my reign, I besieged and conquered Samaria. I surrounded and deported as prisoners 37,290 of its inhabitants. I restored the city of Samaria. I installed them over them, an officer of mine, and imposed upon them the tribute of the former king by Sargon after he destroyed the city. There's a picture of Sargon and Sennacherib, his son. They're both wearing watches. Some of these are same. There's we talked about other people being brought in. Rats, we're gonna run out of time here. Samaritan Temple. We didn't talk about this much. There's a natural amphitheater that forms there. John, were you in this area when you were in Israel?
Where is it now?
This would be Mount Gerizim, and Abel would be in this area of Samaria, central Israel. Most of the time people go, they look at Galilee and Jerusalem for the most part. So the Levites stood in the valley, and 6 tribes gathered on the side of Ebal, and 6 tribes on the side of Gerizim. When the Levites read the curses of the law, and the tribes on Ebal said Amen. When they read the blessings, the tribes of Gerizim said Amen. Deuteronomy 11, Deuteronomy 27, and Joshua chapter number 8. Talks about an experiment they made, but basically proving the Bible correct. I think that's about it. Anyway, that's about all we have time for. Yeah, we were almost at the end anyway. Any questions before I let you go on that? I find these things interesting. I hope you find them as interesting as I do. No questions? All right. I'm going to ask Brother John, would you pray and dismiss us in prayer?
Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for the opportunity that we have to learn from your word. Lord, I thank you for just how you bring everything together, Father, that we know through history, even if the Bible is true, not looking even at history, but thank you for the evidence that is there. Lord, we ask now that you bless the service to follow, and that you give Pastor wisdom as he preaches to us. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
All right, thank you for listening this morning. You are dismissed. We'll move on to the next thing next week.
Yes, all those places we didn't get to, but it was